The rain came down in sheets, blurring the Chicago skyline into streaks of gray and gold. Evelyn Carter stood barefoot on the shoulder of Interstate 90, her sealed grass clinging to her skin, headlights flashing past her like indifferent witnesses. Daniel's black Mercedes disappeared into the storm without brake lights, without hesitation. For a moment she didn't move. She had spent 10 years building a life around the man who just drove away from her. And in that silence, between thunder and passing engines, something inside her broke, and something else began. On paper, Evelyn Carter had everything. The house in Naperville was featured once in a lifestyle magazine. White brick exterior, arched windows, a kitchen island large enough to host charity luncheons. Daniel liked to joke that they had arrived. He would say it while adjusting his cufflinks in the hallway mirror, his reflection sharp and composed. Big client dinner tonight, he'd remind her most evenings. Wear the navy dress, the one that says understated wealth. She used to laugh at that. Lately she just nodded. Evelyn had met Daniel in graduate school. She studied interior design, he studied law. He admired her creativity, she admired his certainty. Back then, they stayed up talking about the future. Travel, children, maybe New York one day. But Chicago happened instead. And somewhere between Daniel's partnership track and Evelyn's decision to pause her career to support his rising profile, their dreams quietly rearranged themselves. At brunches in River North, their friends admired them. "You two are couple goals," someone once said, snapping a photo for Instagram. #power couple. Evelyn smiled for the camera. At night, Daniel scrolled through his phone in bed, the blue light reflecting in his eyes. "Who are you texting?" she asked once, casually. "Work. Always work." The first time she felt the shift wasn't dramatic. It was subtle. A hand withdrawn too quickly. A sigh when she asked about his day. A forgotten anniversary dinner he blamed on court filings. "You're being sensitive," he told her gently. "Everything I do is for us." For us. She repeated those words often, like a prayer. But us had started to feel like him. One Thursday evening, Evelyn stood in their walk-in closet, staring at rows of designer dresses she rarely chose for herself. Her phone buzzed with a notification. A tagged photo from Daniel's firm gala. In the picture, Daniel stood beside a woman Evelyn didn't recognize. Blonde, laughing. Her hand rested lightly on his arm. The caption read, "Celebrating success with the best team." Evelyn zoomed in. The woman's lipstick was smudged on the rim of Daniel's wine glass. Her chest tightened, not with anger, but with recognition. Later that night, when Daniel came home, she washed him carefully. The loosened tie, the faint scent of perfume that wasn't hers. "Did you have fun?" she asked. "Productive evening," he replied, kissing her cheek without meeting her eyes. When he showered, she stood outside the bathroom door, listening to the water run. She didn't know what hurt more, the possibility of betrayal or the certainty that he thought she wouldn't notice. The following week, the messages appeared. Daniel had fallen asleep on the couch, phone slipping from his hand. It buzzed against the leather cushion. A name flashed across the screen. L. Just one letter. Curiosity warred with dignity. She told herself she wouldn't look. She looked. The thread was long, intimate. Weeks, no, months, of late-night confessions, inside jokes, hotel references disguised as conferences. One message read, "I hate pretending she's still part of your life." Evelyn's breath left her body slowly. Still part of your life. She placed the phone back exactly where it had been. When Daniel woke, she made coffee like always. She watched him stir sugar into his cup. "Do you love me?" she asked suddenly. He blinked, surprised. "Of course I do. Then why does it feel like I'm already gone?" A flicker crossed his face. Annoyance, not guilt. "You're overthinking again," he said. "You don't have enough to keep you busy." The words landed like a slap. That night, the storm rolled in over Chicago, and by midnight, Evelyn would find herself standing alone on a highway, watching her husband choose freedom over accountability. But in that moment, sitting across from him at the kitchen table, she still believed she might be able to fix what was already broken. She just didn't yet understand. She was the only one trying. On the 32nd floor of a glass tower overlooking Lake Michigan, the Carter's reflection shimmered in every polished surface. Evelyn Carter adjusted the diamond studs in her ears while studying herself in the hallway mirror. The woman staring back looked composed. Silk midnight blue gown, soft curls pinned with deliberate care, lips painted the shade of controlled confidence. She looked like the wife of a man about to make partner at one of Chicago's most competitive corporate law firms. She did not look like someone slowly disappearing. "Ready?" Daniel called from the foyer. His voice carried that easy authority she used to find comforting. Now it felt rehearsed. She stepped out to join him. Daniel Carter stood perfectly tailored in a charcoal suit, cufflinks gleaming under recessed lighting. He looked like a man who belonged in magazines about ambition. He smiled when he saw her. "You look stunning." "Exactly right. Exactly right." It wasn't a compliment. It was an assessment. The gala was held at a restored Art Deco ballroom downtown. Crystal chandeliers, live jazz, the kind of event where success was measured in handshakes and whispered introductions. Cameras flashed near the entrance as couples posed against a step-and-repeat banner with the firm's logo. Daniel's hand rested lightly on the small of Evelyn's back as they stepped into the light. "Smile," he murmured. She did. By morning, their photo would be on social media. Someone would caption it, "Power couple goals." Someone else would comment with flame emojis and admiration. The illusion would hold. Inside, Daniel was immediately absorbed into a circle of partners and clients. Evelyn stood beside him, nodding politely, laughing on cue. She had learned the art of strategic presence. Speak just enough to seem intelligent, not enough to threaten. She used to run her own design studio, Daniel told a colleague, his tone indulgent. Took a step back while I built this next phase. Used to. Evelyn's smile remained fixed. "I loved your townhouse renovation," one woman said. "Are you still taking clients?" "Oh," Daniel answered before she could. "She's focusing on the home right now. It's been nice. Nice." As if her ambition had been a hobby she'd outgrown. Later, at the table, Evelyn scrolled through Instagram while Daniel discussed billable hours. The photo from the red carpet had already been posted by the firm's account. Hundreds of likes in minutes. She read the comments. "You two are perfection. Relationship goals. Living the dream." She wondered what those strangers would say if they saw Daniel in bed at night, phone angled away from her, laughter too soft to belong to business calls. Or if they saw her lying awake beside him, staring at the ceiling, trying to remember the last time he'd asked how she was. Not what she had scheduled, not what she had planned, but how she was. When they first married, they had lived in a one-bedroom apartment in Lincoln Park. They had eaten takeout on the floor and argued about paint colors. Daniel used to trace patterns on her palm while they talked about children. 2, maybe 3. A house near good schools. A life built together. Now the house existed, the schools were mapped out, but the conversations had thinned into logistics. That night, back in Naperville, the silence in the Mercedes felt heavier than the jazz they'd left behind. "You were quiet tonight," Daniel said, eyes fixed on the road. "I was listening." He gave a small smile. "You're always good at that, listening, absorbing, adjusting." At home, Evelyn slipped off her heels and walked barefoot across the marble kitchen floor. The house was immaculate, clean lines, curated art, everything in its place. She had designed it herself, every light fixture, every textured wall. Yet lately, it felt like she was living inside the showroom. Daniel poured himself a glass of bourbon. "Big week ahead," he said. "If the Anderson merger closes, it changes everything." "For you," she said quietly. He didn't seem to hear the emphasis. "For us," he corrected automatically. She studied him. The faint crease between his brows, the way ambition had sharpened him. Somewhere along the way, he had begun speaking in singular pronouns disguised as plural. "Daniel," she said carefully, "do you ever feel like we're performing?" He frowned. "Performing?" "For everyone. Online, at events, even here." He took a sip of bourbon. "Evelyn, this is how the world works. Image matters. And what about what's real?" His jaw tightened slightly. "Why are you doing this tonight?" "Doing this," as if asking for emotional truth were an inconvenience. "I just..." She searched for words that wouldn't sound fragile. "Sometimes I feel like I'm fading." He exhaled, impatience creeping in. "You're overthinking again. You wanted stability. We have stability." Stability. The word settled between them like a contract. He walked upstairs first. She remained in the kitchen, staring at a reflection of the chandelier in the dark window. Her own reflection hovered faintly beside it. Beautiful, composed, replaceable. Upstairs, Daniel was already in bed, scrolling. The blue glow of his phone illuminated half his face, leaving the other half in shadow. "Who is it?" she asked lightly. "Work," he replied, thumb moving quickly. "Always work." She slipped into bed beside him, careful not to disturb the invisible boundary that had grown between their bodies. The mattress dipped slightly with his weight. She used to curl into him. Now she lay on her side, facing the opposite wall. The phone buzzed again. A name flashed briefly before he tilted the screen away. Just an initial. L. He typed something, smiled faintly. Evelyn closed her eyes. She told herself she was imagining the distance, that success requires sacrifice, that marriages went through seasons. But deep down, beneath the polished surfaces and curated smiles, she felt it. She was becoming a supporting character in her own life. And Daniel was already rehearsing a version of the future where she barely existed. Outside, Chicago's skyline glittered against the dark sky, flawless and untouchable. Inside the Carter home, the illusion held steady. For now. The first crack appeared quietly. Not with shouting, not with confession. with a notification. It was nearly midnight when Evelyn woke to the faint vibration against leather. Daniel had fallen asleep on the couch downstairs, claiming exhaustion after another critical client call. She had covered him with a blanket earlier, pressing a soft kiss to his temple out of habit. Now, standing at the top of the staircase, she saw the dim glow of his phone on the coffee table below. Buzz. A pause. Buzz. She descended slowly, the house wrapped in silence. The marble floor was cold beneath her bare feet. Daniel stirred but didn't wake. The screen lit up again. L. I missed tonight already. Just one sentence. No context. No signature. Just intimacy. Evelyn's pulse thudded in her ears. She shouldn't look. She knew that. Trust wasn't something you verified at midnight. But trust also didn't send messages like that. Her fingers hovered over the screen before she picked it up. The thread opened instantly. It wasn't new. It wasn't accidental. It was months old. Inside jokes about boring galas. Hotel room numbers disguised as conference references. Photos. Nothing explicit but intimate enough. A selfie of Daniel in a tie she had bought him. A message from Elle that read, I hate pretending she's still part of your life. Evelyn's throat tightened. Still part of your life. As if she were a relic. An obligation. A shadow in the background of a more exciting story. Her reflection in the black screen looked unfamiliar. Eyes wide. Lips parted slightly. Like someone watching her own life from outside her body. She placed the phone back exactly as it had been. Precise. Careful. Then she went upstairs and lay awake until dawn. In the morning, Daniel moved through the kitchen with efficient calm. Espresso machine hissing. Cufflinks aligned. Headlines scrolling across his tablet. You're quiet, he observed casually. Evelyn studied him. The sharp line of his jaw. The ease in his posture. The complete absence of guilt. Who's Elle? She asked. The question landed softly, but it changed the air in the room. Daniel didn't look up immediately. He finished reading a sentence first, took a sip of coffee. Elle? He repeated. Yes. A fractional pause. Lauren, junior associate. Why? Evelyn held his gaze. She misses you. His eyes flickered. Barely. You went through my phone? The shift was swift, surgical. I saw the notification. That's not the same thing, Daniel. Evelyn, he interrupted, calm but edged. Do you know how invasive that is? Invasive. The word wrapped around her like accusation. I wasn't snooping, she said, heat rising to her cheeks. It was right there. He stood, placing his cup in the sink with controlled precision. She's part of the Anderson merger team. We've been working insane hours. Of course she texts me. At midnight? That's how high-level deals work. He stepped closer now, not aggressively, just firmly enough to reclaim the space. You've been restless lately, he continued, voice measured. You're reading into things that aren't there. Reading into things. She felt the ground shift subtly beneath her. I saw the messages. And? They didn't sound professional. Daniel exhaled, as if burdened by her imagination. You don't understand the culture of my firm. There's banter, there's pressure. We lean on each other. Does she lean on you in hotel rooms too? The silence snapped tight. For the first time, something hardened in his expression. That's unfair. Is it? He ran a hand through his hair, a gesture she used to interpret as stress. Now it felt like strategy. You're unhappy, he said quietly, and instead of figuring out why, you're looking for a villain. Her stomach dropped. I'm unhappy because you're never here. I'm doing this for us. For us, she repeated, but it sounded hollow even to her. Daniel's voice softened. I think you've lost your sense of direction since you stopped working. You used to have focus, projects, deadlines. Now you have too much time to overanalyze. The words were gentle, reasonable, cruel. So this is my fault? She asked. I didn't say that. You implied it. He stepped back, picking up his briefcase. I can't do this before work. Before work. There it was again, the hierarchy. Career first, emotions later. Maybe. Daniel, she said, the desperation slipping through despite her effort to contain it. Just tell me the truth. He looked at her then, not with anger, not with love, with calculation. The truth, he said evenly, is that I'm exhausted, and I need you to trust me. Trust. The word felt almost mocking now. He kissed her cheek, light, perfunctory, and walked out the door. The house fell silent again. Evelyn stood alone in the kitchen, the morning light pouring through the windows she had chosen for their openness. Everything was transparent, everything except him. By afternoon, she began doubting herself. Maybe she had exaggerated the tone of the messages. Maybe Miss Tonight referred to a meeting. Maybe she was projecting her loneliness onto neutral words. Gaslighting didn't arrive with flames. It arrived with logic. By evening, the tension between them felt physical, like glass walls closing in inch by inch. At dinner, Daniel spoke about closing numbers, regulatory risks, strategic positioning. Evelyn watched his hands move as he talked. Those same hands had once traced promises along her spine. Now they gripped a wine glass like a shield. "Are we okay?" she asked quietly. He smiled, controlled and reassuring. "Of course we are." But he didn't reach for her hand, and she didn't ask again. That night, lying in bed, she stared at the ceiling while his phone vibrated softly against the nightstand. He didn't even try to hide it this time. Buzz. A pause. Buzz. He picked it up and typed without looking at her. In the darkness, Evelyn felt something shift from suspicion to certainty. The illusion wasn't cracking anymore. It was splintering. And beneath the polished glass of their perfect life, something sharp was beginning to surface. The argument began in the kitchen. It ended on the highway. But the space between those two places was where something irreversible cracked open. Rain had been threatening all evening, a low rumble of thunder rolling somewhere beyond the suburbs. Evelyn stood at the counter, Daniel's phone in her hand. She hadn't meant to look again, but this time there was no ambiguity. Room 814, same as last time. "I'll tell her soon, I promise." The timestamp was from that afternoon. Daniel was upstairs changing. Evelyn didn't cry. Not yet. When he came down, tie loosened, sleeves rolled, she held the phone out to him without a word. He froze for half a second, then recovered. "You went through my phone again?" "Again. As if repetition were the crime." "Tell me I misunderstood," she said. The storm finally broke outside, rain hitting the windows in sudden, violent sheets. Daniel walked toward her slowly, like approaching a witness he needed to discredit. "You're spiraling," he said quietly. "This obsession isn't healthy." "Room 814, she repeated. "Same as last time." His jaw tightened. "It's not what you think." "Then what is it?" Silence. He ran a hand through his hair, pacing once across the marble floor. "You've been distant for months," he said finally. "Cold, suspicious. I didn't know how to reach you." The audacity of it stole her breath. "You didn't know how to reach me?" she whispered. "I've been standing right here. You pulled away first." The rain intensified, thunder rattling the glass. "That's not true." "It is," he insisted. "You stopped working. You stopped being you. Everything became about what I wasn't giving you." Evelyn stared at him, stunned by the rearrangement of reality. "So you replaced me?" she asked. "I didn't replace you." "Then what did you do?" He hesitated. That was the moment. Not the confession. Not the anger. The hesitation. Because in that fraction of time, she saw calculation. What version of truth would cost him the least? "It was a mistake," he said at last. "It didn't mean anything." "How long?" He didn't answer. "How long, Daniel?" "A few months." Her laugh came out sharp and broken. "The messages go back nearly a year." He looked away. The house felt smaller, the air thinner. "Why didn't you just leave?" she asked. "Because I didn't want to ruin everything." Everything. The house, the reputation, the optics. Not her. "I was going to end it," he said quickly. "I just needed time." "For what?" "To make it clean." Clean. As if you were paperwork. The rage came then. Not explosive, but cold. "You told her you'd tell me soon," Evelyn said. "When?" He didn't respond. That silence was louder than thunder. She grabbed her coat from the chair. "Where are you going?" he demanded. "Out." "In this weather?" She met his eyes. "Steady now. I need air." He followed her to the garage. "This is dramatic," he snapped. "We can fix this." "We?" she repeated. Rain lashed against the driveway as she slid into the passenger seat of his Mercedes. He climbed into the driver's side, slamming the door harder than necessary. Neither spoke as he pulled out. The windshield wipers fought the downpour. Headlights blurred into streaks of white and red along Interstate 90. Finally, he spoke. "You're humiliating me." She turned slowly. "I'm humiliating you? You're acting irrational. If anyone sees us like this." She laughed, disbelief slicing through her chest. "You care about who sees us?" "I care about our life." "Our life?" she echoed. "You have a whole other one in hotel rooms." "Lower your voice," he warned. "No." The word came out clear. "No, I won't." Cars sped past them, tires hissing against wet pavement. "You think this is easy for me?" he shot back. "The pressure I'm under? The expectations? So you sleep with someone else?" It wasn't about sex. That's worse. He gripped the steering wheel harder. "You've changed," he said. "You used to understand ambition, and you used to understand love." The silence that followed was deadly. "You're overreacting," he muttered. Something inside her snapped. "Stop telling me what I'm feeling," she shouted. "Stop rewriting this like I'm crazy. Because you are acting crazy." The word hung between them like a verdict. crazy. Rain hammered down. Without warning, Daniel veered toward the shoulder. The car jerked to a stop beneath an overpass, water pooling around the tires. "Get out," he said. She blinked. "What?" "Get out. If you want drama, fine. Get out and cool down." She stared at him, waiting for the punchline. There wasn't one. "You're not serious. I can't drive like this," he said, jaw clenched. "You're hysterical." Hysterical. The old word for inconvenient women. For a moment, humiliation burned through her, hot and blinding. He unlocked the doors. The click echoed louder than the thunder. Evelyn stepped out slowly, rain soaking her hair instantly, silk dress clinging to her skin. She leaned down to the open window. "You're leaving me?" she asked quietly. His eyes flickered, not remorseful, just exhausted. "Call an Uber," he said, and then he drove away. The taillights disappeared into rain and darkness without hesitation. For several seconds she didn't move. Cars rushed past, spraying cold water onto her legs. The highway roared with indifference. She stood barefoot on wet asphalt, heart pounding, dress plastered to her body. Humiliation flooded her first. He left me. Then something else followed. Stillness. A strange, piercing clarity. She looked down at her hands. They were shaking, but not from fear, from awakening. Because in that brutal, absurd moment, abandoned under a Chicago overpass like an inconvenience, she understood something with terrifying precision. This was not the worst thing that could happen to her. The worst thing had already been happening for years. Being unseen, being diminished, being rewritten. Rain streamed down her face, indistinguishable from tears. A car slowed slightly as it passed. For the first time in months, she felt the sharp outline of herself again. Not as wife, not as accessory, not as liability. Just Evelyn, alone, and still standing. In the distance, thunder rolled again, but this time she didn't flinch. The rain did not soften. It poured as if the sky itself had been holding back for years. Evelyn had lost track of time. 5 minutes, 10, maybe more. The cold began to seep through her skin, through silk and bone, until her teeth threatened to chatter. She refused to cry. Not here. Not like this. Headlights slowed again, this time not in curiosity, but in tension. A dark SUV pulled onto the shoulder several yards ahead of her. For a brief, instinctive second, fear flared. The passenger window rolled down. "Ma'am?" The voice was steady, male, controlled. "Are you okay?" She hesitated. Pride rose automatically, sharp and defensive. "I'm fine," she called back. The man studied her for half a breath, rain distorting the distance between them. "You're standing barefoot on Interstate 90 at 1 in the morning," he said gently. "You're not fine." Something in his tone, matter of fact, not intrusive, disarmed her. He turned on his hazard lights and stepped out. He was tall, early 40s perhaps, dark hair dampened by the rain, glasses slightly fogged from the shifting temperature. He wore scrubs beneath a long coat. Hospital. He approached slowly, hands visible. "I'm Marcus," he said. "Marcus Hale." She almost laughed at the absurdity of introductions in a storm. "Evelyn," she replied. "Evelyn," he repeated, as if anchoring her name to the moment. "Did your car break down?" A pause. She could lie, but something about the quiet steadiness in his eyes made that impossible. "My husband left," she said simply. Marcus did not blink, did not ask follow-up questions, did not offer shock. Instead, he removed his coat and held it out to her. "You're freezing," he said. "I'm fine." "You're in shock." The word landed softer than Daniel's had earlier that night. Not hysterical, not dramatic. In shock. He draped the coat around her shoulders before she could protest. It smelled faintly of antiseptic and rain. "Can I give you a ride?" he asked. "Or call someone?" She looked down the highway, as if expecting Daniel's taillights to reappear. They didn't. "I don't want to go home," she admitted. Marcus nodded, as if that made perfect sense. "There's a diner about 2 miles from here, open all night. We can sit until you decide what you want." The simplicity of the offer, no agenda, no pressure, unraveled something tight inside her. She nodded. The diner was nearly empty. Fluorescent lights buzzed faintly overhead. A waitress in her 50s poured coffee without questions, her eyes lingering briefly on Evelyn's soaked dress and Marcus's damp coat. They sat across from each other in a vinyl booth. Steam rose from Evelyn's mug as she wrapped her hands around it. For several minutes, neither spoke. Marcus didn't feel the silence. He simply waited. "You didn't ask what happened," she said finally. "I figured you'd tell me if you wanted to." She studied him carefully now. There was weariness in his posture, the kind that didn't come from one long shift, but from something heavier. "You're a doctor," she said. "Cardiac surgeon." She gave a faint, humorless smile. "Of course you are." He tilted his head slightly. "What does that mean?" "It means you probably see broken things every day." A corner of his mouth lifted. "I repair hearts," he said. "I don't always understand them." The honesty surprised her. "What about yours?" she asked before she could stop herself. A flicker crossed his expression. "Recently divorced," he answered calmly. 6 months. "I'm sorry." "Don't be." He stirred his coffee. "It was over long before we signed papers." That sentence settled between them, familiar and unspoken. Over long before. Evelyn stared at the dark liquid in her cup. "I think mine's been over for a while too," she whispered. Marcus didn't offer platitudes. He didn't say, "You deserve better." He didn't condemn Danielle. He asked one question. "Why did you stay?" The question didn't feel accusatory. It felt surgical. "Because leaving felt like failing," she admitted. "Because everyone thinks we're perfect. Because I kept believing it would come back." "What?" "Us." The word sounded fragile now. Marcus nodded slowly. "I stayed in my marriage for 2 extra years because I thought endurance was the same as commitment," he said. "It's not." They held each other's gaze for a moment too long to be strangers. Not romantic, not charged, just understood. Outside, the rain softened slightly. "You don't have to decide everything tonight," Marcus said. "Just decide where you sleep." The practicality grounded her. She reached for her phone. 3 missed calls, 2 texts from Daniel. "Where are you? Don't do something stupid." Her jaw tightened. He wasn't worried. He was managing optics. "I won't go back tonight," she said quietly. Marcus nodded. "There's a hotel near the hospital. Safe. Quiet." She hesitated. "You don't owe me anything," he added quickly. "I can drop you there and leave." She believed him. That was the surprising part. In a single hour, this stranger had made her feel more visible than her husband had in months. When they stood to leave, she swayed slightly. Marcus's hand hovered near her elbow, close enough to steady her, far enough not to presume. The restraint felt intimate. In the SUV, the heater hummed softly. They drove in silence through wet Chicago streets, skyscrapers reflecting fractured light across puddles. At the hotel entrance, he pulled over. "This is where I get off," she said. He gave a small nod. "Evelyn," she turned. "Whatever happens next," he said, voice steady, "make sure it's a choice, not a reaction." The words settled deep. Choice, not abandonment, not humiliation. Choice. She stepped out, coat still wrapped around her shoulders. For a brief second, she leaned back toward the window. "Thank you," she said. He held her gaze. "Take care of your heart," he replied. The SUV disappeared into the night. Evelyn stood beneath the hotel awning, rain now a soft drizzle. For the first time since Daniel drove away, she did not feel discarded. She felt paused, as if her life had split into 2 timelines, the one where she went back and the one where she didn't. Inside the lobby, her reflection in the glass doors looked different, still soaked, still shaken, but no longer invisible. The hotel room was anonymous in a way Evelyn found comforting. Beige walls, crisp white sheets, a muted television playing a morning news segment about market volatility. The city outside looked washed clean after the storm, as if nothing had happened. But something had. Evelyn hadn't gone home. At sunrise, she silenced Daniel's 6th call and turned her phone face down on the nightstand. She didn't want explanations. Not yet. She wanted silence, unfiltered by his version of events. She ordered coffee and opened her laptop. For the first time in years, she logged into the shared financial accounts without the passive assumption that everything was fine. Daniel had always handled investments. "It's simpler," he would say. "You don't need the stress." She used to believe that was care. Now it felt like containment. The first discrepancy was small. A transfer she didn't recognize. $5,000, labeled consulting reimbursement. She frowned. Then she searched further back. Another transfer. 8,000. Then 12. Different descriptions. Same pattern. Always late at night. Always routed through a secondary business account Daniel had created for tax flexibility. Her pulse quickened. She cross-checked the dates. Hotel charges appeared around the same weekends. Room 814. Her throat tightened. This wasn't a fling. It was funded. She dug deeper. A credit card she didn't know existed. Opened 18 months ago. Authorized user, Daniel Carter. Primary cardholder, Daniel Carter. But the billing address wasn't their home. It was a downtown condo. Evelyn stared at the screen, mind struggling to process. Condo. She opened Zillow. The address matched the high-rise in River North. Purchased 14 months ago. Owner listed under an LLC she didn't recognize. But she recognized the incorporation lawyer's name. Daniel's colleague. Her chest felt hollow now. Not sharp, not frantic. Empty. He hadn't just lied. He had built infrastructure for the lie. A separate space. A separate life. She leaned back in the chair, eyes fixed on the ceiling. How many nights had he claimed late meetings? How many mornings had he kissed her goodbye after leaving another bed? Her phone buzzed again. This time she looked. Daniel. Please come home. We need to talk. Daniel. I made mistakes, but this is fixable. Daniel. Don't blow up our lives over something temporary. Temporary. The word felt obscene. She typed one message back. Do you own a condo in River North? The typing bubble appeared instantly. Stopped. Appeared again. It's complicated. Her hands began to shake. Complicated. She remembered every time he had told her she didn't need to worry about money. Every time he reassured her that stepping away from her design firm was strategic. Focus on us, he had said. Us. Her laptop chimed with another notification, this time from her old business email. A former client had written asking if she was accepting new projects again. The timing felt almost cruel, or prophetic. Evelyn opened her archive files, contracts, portfolio images, before and after transformations she had designed with precision and instinct. She had been spaces that felt alive, while her own life had quietly suffocated. She opened a new spreadsheet. Line by line she documented everything. Transfers, charges, property records. It wasn't just betrayal of the heart, it was financial infidelity, strategic concealment, a future being built without her knowledge. By afternoon, Daniel showed up at the hotel. She hadn't told him which one. He must have tracked her credit card. The knock on the door was measured, not frantic. She opened it. He looked tired, tie loosened, eyes shadowed. Evelyn. She stepped aside to let him in. The room felt smaller with him inside. You scared me, he said. I'm not the one who left someone on the highway. He winced slightly. I lost my temper. No, she said evenly. You revealed it. He ran a hand through his hair. Can we sit? They faced each other across a small table. She turned the laptop toward him. Tell me about the condo. His jaw tightened. It's an investment property. With furniture? She asked softly. With wine glasses in the photos? He didn't answer. Does she live there? Evelyn continued. Silence. That's not fair, he said finally. Fair? Her voice remained eerily calm. You created an LLC to hide the property from your wife. I was protecting assets. From me? No, from potential liabilities. Like divorce? She asked. His eyes flickered. There it was. He hadn't stumbled into an affair. He had prepared an exit. You were planning this, she whispered. I was keeping options open. The cruelty of that sentence settled like dust. I gave up my firm for you, she said. I signed joint tax returns. I trusted you with everything. And I provided for you, he shot back, frustration surfacing. Do you think this house, this lifestyle, just happened? So that's the trade, she asked. Security in exchange for truth. He stood abruptly. You're twisting this. No, she said quietly. I'm finally seeing it. He paced once, twice. It wasn't supposed to go this far. How far is far, Daniel? A year? A property? An alternate future? He stopped moving. I never stopped caring about you, but you stopped choosing me. The silence between them was no longer volatile. It was final. You don't understand the pressure I'm under, he said again, almost pleading now. She met his eyes. For the first time, she said softly, I do. Because pressure didn't create deception. It revealed character. Her phone buzzed again. A message from an unknown number. Hi, this is Lauren. I think you deserve to know the truth. Evelyn's stomach turned cold. She didn't open it. Not yet. She looked back at Daniel. Is she pregnant? She asked. His face drained of color. No. The hesitation was enough. You don't know, she said. He sank back into the chair. I was going to tell you, he whispered. When? She asked. But she already knew the answer. When it was convenient. When it protected him. When the narrative could be controlled. Evelyn closed her laptop slowly. The betrayal was no longer emotional chaos. It was architectural, layered, engineered. He hadn't just cheated. He had erased her from the blueprint of his future. And in doing so, he had underestimated something fundamental. The woman he believed he had sidelined was the one who understood foundations. And she had just discovered the cracks ran deeper than either of them imagined. The first headline appeared on a Tuesday morning. It was small. Buried halfway down a legal industry blog most people would never read. Federal inquiry opens into Anderson merger practices. Evelyn saw it before Daniel did. She had returned home 3 days earlier, not to reconcile, but to gather documents. The house felt different now, less like a sanctuary, more like evidence. Daniel had been leaving earlier and coming home later. His composure had thinned into something brittle. She stood in the kitchen, coffee cooling in her hand as she read the article. Unnamed senior partners may face scrutiny over disclosure irregularities and off-record financial arrangements. Her chest tightened. Off-record. Financial arrangements. She didn't need imagination to fill in blanks. Daniel entered the kitchen moments later, tie already knotted too tightly. You're up early, he said. She turned the tablet toward him. He read it in silence. A muscle in his jaw jumped. It's procedural, he said flatly. Media exaggeration. Is it? He placed the tablet down with deliberate calm. This has nothing to do with us. The phrasing caught her attention. Nothing to do with us. He still used the plural when convenient. Does it have to do with you? She asked. His eyes hardened. I can't discuss firm matters. She watched the flicker of calculation return, the same look he'd worn the night she found the condo. This isn't about the affair anymore, she said quietly. This is about legality. His patience snapped slightly. I know what I'm doing. The irony was almost unbearable. By Thursday, the story wasn't small anymore. 2 senior associates were placed on administrative leave. Internal emails had been subpoenaed. Daniel stopped sleeping. Evelyn would wake at 2 a.m. to the glow of his laptop, spreadsheets open, phone pressed to his ear. I told you to delete those, he hissed one night from the hallway. Her stomach dropped. Delete, not clarify, not explain. Delete. The next morning, she received another message from Lauren. He told me the condo was temporary. He said you two were separated. I didn't know everything. Evelyn stared at the text for a long time before replying. Are you pregnant? 3 dots appeared almost instantly, then disappeared, then reappeared. No, I was. I'm not anymore. The room tilted. He asked me to take care of it. He said timing mattered. Evelyn closed her eyes. Timing. Everything in Daniel's world was timing. Deals, appearances, reputations, lives. She didn't respond again. There was no comfort to offer, no solidarity to claim, just a shared realization that they had both been characters in a story he scripted. Friday evening, Daniel came home earlier than usual. His tie was gone, his collar open, his expression hollow. They're auditing the merger communications, he said without preamble. Evelyn looked up from the dining table where she'd spread out old design sketches. And? They're looking for evidence of conflict of interest. Her mind moved quickly. Was there one? He hesitated. It's complicated. She almost laughed at the familiarity of the phrase. Daniel, she said evenly, were you leveraging insider knowledge to protect your own investment property? Silence. The condo, registered under an LLC, purchased during the merger. Her breath slowed. You used firm access to secure favorable financing, didn't you? He sank into a chair, rubbing his temples. Everyone does it. Everyone hides assets from their wife? His head snapped up. This isn't about that. It's all about that, she said quietly. You built a separate financial structure while assuring me everything was stable. I was protecting us. No, she corrected. You were protecting yourself. The truth hung there, raw and undeniable. He looked smaller suddenly, less like the polished partner in waiting, more like a man who had miscalculated risk. Lauren stopped responding to his messages by the end of the week. Evelyn knew because he didn't bother hiding the calls anymore. She heard them ring unanswered. One night, she found him sitting alone in the dark living room. No laptop, no phone, just silence. They're suspending me pending review, he said. The words landed heavy. For how long? She asked. Indefinitely. For the first time since the storm, she felt something that wasn't anger. It was recognition. He looked lost, stripped of momentum. Without the firm, without the illusion of control, Daniel seemed unmoored. I didn't think it would unravel like this, he admitted. Neither did I, she replied softly. He looked at her then, not with authority, not with defense, with fear. I might lose everything, he whispered. Everything. The house, the partnership, the reputation. She waited. He swallowed. I didn't realize how much you held together, he said finally. It wasn't poetic, it wasn't dramatic. It was factual. She had managed social expectations, financial appearances, emotional stabilization. She had absorbed his stress like insulation. Without her quiet maintenance, cracks widened faster. You were the steady one, he continued, voice unsteady now. I didn't see it. No, she said gently, you didn't. He leaned forward, elbows on his knees. I thought I needed more, he confessed. More excitement, more admiration. I didn't understand that what I had was anchor. Anchor. The word echoed something Marcus had said. Repairing hearts wasn't the same as understanding them. Daniel had mistaken turbulence for vitality. And now? She asked. He looked up at her, eyes red-rimmed. Now I think I was drowning the only thing that kept me stable. The admission didn't heal anything, but it stripped away pretense. For a long moment neither spoke. Outside, the Chicago skyline shimmered as always, untouched by private collapse. Finally, Evelyn stood. I can't be your life raft, she said quietly. He flinched. I'm not asking you to. Aren't you? The silence answered for him. She walked toward the staircase. Evelyn, he called softly. She paused. I never meant to lose you. She didn't turn around. You lost me long before you realized it. Upstairs, she closed the bedroom door gently. Not slammed, not dramatic, just final in its softness. Downstairs, Daniel sat alone in the dark. Career unraveling, mistress gone, reputation fractured. For the first time in years, there was no one buffering the consequences for him. And in that quiet collapse, he began to understand something devastating. The woman he had treated as background was the only foundation he had ever truly stood on. By the time Daniel returned to the house that Sunday evening, something essential had already shifted. Not in him, in her. Evelyn had spent the weekend meeting with a lawyer. Quietly, efficiently. No drama, no threats, just information. She now understood exactly where she stood. Financially, legally, structurally. Knowledge did something anger never could. It steadied her. The sun had begun to set when Daniel walked through the front door. He looked different. Not disheveled, Daniel would never allow that, but diminished. The sharp edges of his confidence had dulled. They made it official, he said without greeting. Administrative suspension pending investigation. Evelyn closed the folder in front of her and looked at him calmly. I assumed they would. He blinked, surprised by her tone. You don't seem shocked. I've stopped being shocked. The words landed without venom, just fact. He set his keys down slowly, as if afraid sudden movement might fracture something fragile between them. They're reviewing email archives, he continued. Financial disclosures. If they connect the LLC to insider leverage, they will, she said. His jaw tightened. You've already decided I'm guilty. I've already seen how you operate. Silence stretched. Daniel stepped closer. I came back because I need to talk to you. You're here because you have nowhere else to go. That hit. He didn't deny it. Lauren had stopped answering entirely. The condo, once a symbol of strategic freedom, was now a liability. He couldn't risk being seen there. You're the only person who knows everything, he said quietly. She tilted her head. No, I'm the only person who used to protect everything. He inhaled sharply. I'm not asking you to protect me. What are you asking? His composure cracked then. Not dramatically, but subtly. A flicker in his eyes, a tremor beneath control. I'm asking you not to leave, he said. There it was. Not love, not remorse. Fear. Evelyn studied him carefully. For what reason? She asked. Because we can fix this. She almost smiled. You don't even know what this is. He ran a hand through his hair, pacing once across the marble floor she had chosen years ago. I made mistakes. That's a small word for what you did. I was under pressure. She raised the hand gently. No. The single syllable stopped him. Do not reduce this to stress, she said calmly. Do not tell me ambition made you betray me. Ambition reveals character. It doesn't replace it. He stared at her, stunned by the steadiness in her voice. You planned an exit, she continued. You built financial walls. You told another woman you would erase me when it was convenient. He flinched. That's not how I saw it. That's exactly how you executed it. The precision of her language unsettled him more than shouting ever could. I never stopped caring about you, he insisted. She held his gaze. You stopped respecting me. The word hung heavy. Respect. He opened his mouth to argue, then closed it, because there was no counter-argument. You made me question my instincts, she went on. You called me irrational, hysterical, suspicious. His face tightened. I was trying to stabilize the situation. No, she corrected softly. You were trying to control the narrative. He sank into a chair. For the first time, he didn't try to defend himself. The house felt different now. Less like a stage, more like a courtroom. I was afraid, he admitted. Of what? Of failing. Of not becoming who I said I would be. Of losing status. And so you lost integrity instead. He closed his eyes briefly. Yes. The honesty surprised even him. Evelyn felt something unexpected. Sadness. Not for the marriage. For the man he might have been. You didn't cheat because you were overwhelmed, she said gently. You cheated because admiration felt easier than vulnerability. His eyes opened slowly. You think I'm that shallow? I think you're that afraid. The truth landed between them like glass. Daniel leaned forward, elbows on his knees. I didn't know how to sit with feeling ordinary, he confessed. Lauren looked at me like I was unstoppable. You saw my doubts. Because I loved you. The word loved was past tense now, and that scared you, she added. He swallowed. Yes. The admission cracked something open. You wanted a witness to your success, she said, not a partner who knew your weaknesses. He nodded faintly. And when I started feeling invisible, she continued, you labeled it insecurity, instead of asking why. His voice dropped. I didn't want to look at what I was becoming. Cowardly? She offered quietly. He didn't protest. The room was still. Outside, evening settled over Chicago. soft light reflecting against glass and steel. I can't fix your investigation, Evelyn said after a long pause. I can't undo your choices. I'm not asking you to. Yes, you are, she replied. You're asking me to stay so you don't have to face the consequences alone. That struck deep. He looked at her helplessly. I don't know how to do this without you. She stood slowly. That's the problem, Daniel. He followed her movement with his eyes. You built a life that functioned because I absorbed the emotional cost, she said. Now that it's collapsing, you want the cushion back. I want my wife. You want your anchor. He had no answer. Evelyn stepped closer. Not in intimacy, but in clarity. You didn't lose me when the firm suspended you, she said softly. You lost me the night you chose convenience over truth. His voice broke slightly. Is there anything I can say? She considered the question carefully. Yes, she said at last. He waited. Say you were wrong without explaining why. Silence. Seconds stretched. I was wrong, he said finally. No justification, no conditions, just the words. Evelyn nodded once. Now learn how to live with that. He looked up at her, desperate. Are you leaving? She held his gaze. I already did. The realization settled slowly over his face. Not dramatic, not explosive, just undeniable. For the first time since the storm, Daniel understood something with brutal clarity. He hadn't been competing with another man. He had been competing with his own fear of being seen. And he had lost. The morning Evelyn decided to leave did not feel dramatic. There was no shouting, no shattered glass, no final argument echoing down the staircase. There was only sunlight. It poured through the tall kitchen windows, illuminating dust motes in the air, tiny fragments suspended between what had been and what would be. Daniel stood by the counter, hands wrapped around the mug of coffee he hadn't touched. He looked like a man waiting for a verdict he already knew. Upstairs, a suitcase clicked shut. The sound traveled through the house like a quiet declaration. Evelyn descended slowly, one hand resting on the banister she had chosen for its clean architectural line. She wore jeans, a simple white blouse, and the calm expression of someone no longer negotiating with herself. The suitcase rolled behind her. Daniel's eyes followed it first, then her. You're really going? He said. It wasn't a question. Yes. He swallowed. For how long? She met his gaze steadily. For good. The words didn't tremble. He looked around the kitchen. The marble counters, the pendant lights she had insisted on importing from Italy, the carefully curated art on the walls. You're walking away from everything we built, he said quietly. She shook her head. No, I'm walking away from what you built without me. The distinction hung between them. He stepped forward, stopping just short of touching her. I told you I was wrong. You were, she agreed, and I meant it. I know. The simplicity unsettled him more than anger ever had. I don't understand how you can be so calm, he said. Because I already grieved this marriage, she replied softly. You just noticed. That landed. He had been fighting scandal, suspension, exposure. She had been fighting invisibility. Two different wars. Only one of them had prepared for loss. I loved you, he said suddenly, as if the past tense might still be reversible. She studied his face. The man she had met in graduate school was still there, somewhere beneath ambition and fear. She could see him now, stripped of performance. I loved you too, she said. The admission did not weaken her. It freed her. He took a shaky breath. Is there someone else? The question was inevitable. She thought of Marcus, the quiet steadiness under a rain-soaked overpass, the way he had waited without demanding. There's someone who reminded me I exist, she said carefully. Daniel closed his eyes briefly. That's worse, he murmured. No, she corrected gently. It's honest. Silence filled the space one last time. He looked at her suitcase again. What about forgiveness, he asked. Does that exist in this version of you? She considered the question fully before answering. Yes, she said. Hope flickered in his eyes. But it doesn't look like staying. The hope faded, replaced by comprehension. I forgive you, she continued. Not because you deserve it, but because I refuse to carry this with me. He absorbed that slowly. You're not angry? He asked. I was, she admitted, but anger ties me to you. I don't want to be tied anymore. Outside, a moving truck passed slowly down the street, its engine humming like a distant reminder that lives shift every day. Daniel stepped aside as she rolled the suitcase toward the door. He didn't try to block her. He didn't beg. Somewhere in the last 24 hours, he had understood that persuasion was another form of control. At the threshold, she paused. This house had once symbolized arrival. Now it felt like a museum of compromises. I never meant to abandon you, he said quietly behind her. She turned slowly. You didn't abandon me that night on the highway, she replied. He frowned slightly. I did. No, she said, voice steady. You abandoned us long before that. The highway was just the first time I stopped running after you. The truth settled like final punctuation. He nodded once. For the first time since the collapse began, he did not defend himself. I see that now, he said. And he did. He saw how fear had guided him, how ego had outweighed empathy, how he had mistaken admiration for intimacy. He saw that abandonment had never been about a car speeding into rain. It had been about small, daily withdrawals. She opened the door. Cool Chicago air drifted inside. Evelyn, he said softly. She looked back one last time. You were never invisible, he told her. I just refused to look. Her throat tightened, but she didn't cry. That's something you'll have to live with, she said gently. Then she stepped outside. The door closed with a soft, irreversible click. Daniel stood alone in the quiet kitchen. The house felt larger now, emptier. He walked slowly through rooms she had designed, noticing details he had never bothered to appreciate. The warmth of lighting, the deliberate textures, the way every space flowed into the next with intention. She had built harmony. He had built escape routes. His phone buzzed on the counter. Another message from a reporter. Another request for comment. He silenced it. For the first time in years, there was no one beside him absorbing the noise, no one managing perception, no one steadying the narrative. He walked to the window and watched her car pull away. She did not look back. And in that moment, Daniel understood something devastatingly clear. She had not been the one abandoned. He had abandoned integrity. He had abandoned partnership. He had abandoned the only person who loved him without needing him to be impressive. Now he stood inside the echo of his own choices. Across town, Evelyn drove toward the small apartment she had signed for that morning. It wasn't large, it wasn't prestigious, but it was hers. Her phone buzzed gently at a red light. A simple message. Marcus, how are you? She looked at the skyline ahead. Glass towers reflecting sunlight like possibility instead of performance. For the first time in years, her answer felt uncomplicated. I'm free. She pressed send. The light turned green, and Evelyn drove forward. Not as someone discarded, not as someone defeated, but as someone who had finally chosen herself.